advisor on disability. And then all of a sudden, before you even call them, there's a new bill that's coming up in the committee, and they pick up the phone and they say, Alan, this is Senator Jones. Have you got a couple of minutes? Well, sure, Senator. Well, I just saw this new bill, HB 105, on this registry. Can you tell me a little bit about it? It looks interesting and whatever. When that happens, folks, you have hit the grand slam home run. Again, it doesn't mean they're always going to do what you ask them to do, but they trust you to be knowledgeable and competent. And if I didn't know the bill, and this is in the script for today, if you're ever asked a question and you don't know the answer, what are you going to say? Yeah, that's a great question, Senator. Great question, Representative. Haven't thought about that. Let me do some checking and I'll get back to you. And what had you better do? You better get back to them. You're building a relationship. You're building trust. And if you need a little more time, get back to them and say, I'm still working on it. I didn't forget about it, Senator. As soon as I know the answer to that question, I will let you know. Okay? That's how you build it. And it will happen. There are times in meetings, and don't play a liar. Don't try to con them that you know the answer. And I share with you real stories. When I was in Colorado as the ARC Colorado exec, this is tough with this column, I hate it. There was the dean of the lobbying group. You heard Bill Filler talk about 500 and some odd. Colorado didn't have that many. I think there were a couple of hundred. There were a couple of gentlemen who I was told when I got there, Alan, go spend time with them. They'll be like the Bill Fuller. They'll give you the inside baseball. They're happy to share and whatever. And they lobbied for the oil and gas industry, which in Colorado with shale was big stuff. Okay, well respected, everybody knew them. I walked into the Capitol one Friday. I was the ARC Colorado exec, and also I was a registered lobbyist. And there was scuttlebutt in the coffee shop. Did you hear about, and I won't mention their names, and I said, what are you talking about? They have been told never to show their face in the state capitol again. These people had been doing this work for 15 years. They got caught in a hearing not knowing the answer, and because of their egos, they lied. A member of the committee checked it out, got the facts to the committee, and they then got letters. Don't you ever come back here. You can't be trusted. Okay? So I share that with you. These were seasoned pros whose egos got in the way of saying in a hearing on a bill on oil shale that they didn't know the answer. They'd have to check with the engineers or somebody else. They faked it. And I guess a member of the committee didn't think it was quite right, so he did his own research and found out they blatantly lied. It wasn't like they just fudged a little bit. They should have known better, but their egos were such. They were the dean of the lobbyists. So if it applies to them, think what it means for us. So don't lie, don't fake it. It's okay to say, great question. I don't know, Senator. I need to find that out, and when I do, I'll get back to you. Okay, so really important stuff. All right. Never go into a meeting to talk about 6 issues. I used to run what's now called the Disability Policy Seminar in DC, run by a bunch of national organizations. And there's always a bunch of issues on the table if any of you have been or think about going. Here's the dilemma. In the guidance to go and set your meetings, which are done in advance, and you might get a 20-minute meeting, but probably 10 or 15, the folks in charge for the last 15 years don't say, when you go to meet with your senator or rep, pick one of the 6 or 8 issues, or 2. I have heard of people going in, and in 10 minutes, they're trying to cover 6 bills. They've wasted their time, the staff time, or the members' time. You can't do it. In this case here, I'm saying never more than 1 or 2. For our practice today, 1. And get that one done, and then make another meeting to talk about a different issue. That's fine. Again, they're on information overload. They can't process all this stuff, and remember, most of them don't know much of what you're talking about, if anything. Pick one. That's why we're picking one. Make an appointment. Your appointments have been pre-made. All right, another ego question. Always introduce yourself. In the course of a day, particularly when they're in session, how many faces do you think they come in touch with? Hundreds, okay? And whether they're citizen lobbyists, they're voters, other people, paid lobbyists, their colleagues, and get your ego out of this when you walk into the meeting and it's whomever. Hi, Senator. I have seen people do this. They're waiting for the senator to call back my name. What is this, a power game? Alan Bergman with brain injury, UCP, citizen, whatever. Oh, sure, Alan, how are you? Good to see you again. Put people at ease the same way you would want to be. Respect, dignity, common sense courtesy is the order of the day here. This is not a power game about, do you remember who I am? They probably will once you say the name, but you know, if they've seen 150 people that day, it's a little bit blurry. I know maybe it's never happened to any of you, it's happened to me, and as you get a little more mature in life, it may happen a little more often, where you know the face, but you can't pull up the name. Okay.
With my own children.
If you didn't hear what she said, it even happens sometimes with my own children. And I have heard from fellow grandparents who have lots of grandkids, they sometimes forget the name of the grandkid. They know it's a grandkid, but if they've got 6 or 7 of them, it's like, wait a minute, is that Steve or is that Bruce? Okay, that's okay.
In the classroom, kids actually say, oh, that's okay, we know who you're talking about.
Okay, all right, and again, introduce, and again, you got to get down to business. So again, if you know something good about what they've done, we'll get to that in a minute. Why are you here? We are here to talk with you about House Bill 105 and tell them who the sponsor is or co-sponsors, because they may not know what it is and what it does. Okay? So they're clear, and then what you're going to be asking them to do. This is like sales, so you're telling them up front, this is the product, this is what I'm asking you to buy. Okay? This is all modified from a lot of work in sales, but it is tried and true for legislative advocacy over 25 plus years with slight changes. All right? And you want them to do, so you're asked, okay? If you're doing this in a group, I'll back up, introductions quickly, not full details, just, hi, I'm Alan from Mobile, wherever, just so they know who you are, where you're from. Then when we get a little further in, you can talk a little bit about you're a self-advocate or you're a parent or whatever. And there'll be a couple of people for specific stories. All right? If you know they've done anything good in the past, and typically you would know, and we may know about the person who's coming, we'll get to that in a little while, thank them. As I said yesterday, I don't know anybody who doesn't like a warm fuzzy. Thank you for what you did on the bill last year, or on the appropriation, or on whatever it might be. You're acknowledging they're an ally, or at least they're conceptually an ally, and that makes them a little more comfortable, okay? Don't ever attack them and say, well, you good for nothing, whatever. How could you have voted against that bill last year? Meeting adjourned, have a nice day, don't ever come back. I mean, again, but I've seen people do this because they get all this stuff in their craw. And remember, it's not about last year's unless it was a goodie. We're moving forward. They get to vote on the next bill and the one after that and the one after that. And I can assure you, even at the federal level, on occasion, some of the greatest disability advocates or allies voted in a different way. Who knows why? You don't go in and beat them up. You come back the next time and you talk to Senator Harkin or Dole or Senator Kennedy or Hatch or Weicker, whoever it was, because every once in a while, they surprise you. It doesn't mean your bill went down, but they voted no. It's not worth trying to find out why unless they've made a statement why. Okay, fine, move on. But always thank if you can. Now, somebody's going to get into a little bit of detail, and maybe one person. Why is this bill important? What does it mean? State your case. No jargon or acronyms. Don't presume they know the stuff, because their egos are such. If we were doing special ed, and you started talking about IEP and LRE and FAPE, are they going to tell you they don't know what you're talking about? No, they're just going to smile and nod, and you've lost them. You're in a foreign language. Talk in real words, and if they know it, they're going to let you know. Oh, individualized, yeah, that's an IEP. I know what those are. Oh, great, okay. Then you can roll from there, and they'll let you know. But if not, just keep going with the presumption, no acronyms, no initials, because they probably don't know what it is, unless they've worked in that area, and most of them have not, okay? So take the high road. Personal stories or anecdotes. We talked about this yesterday. At every table, at least one person, and you'll have to decide who, because you're each going to do different pieces here. Everybody's got a role to play, a story relating to the topic at hand. And unfortunately, you told me some very painful stuff last night, but that's powerful stuff to be shared. If you're, is this a 105 table? The registry?
No, it's gonna be the code, so I'm gonna need to move.
But you're on which one?
The-
You're on the registry, right? Yeah. I'm not going to take it away, but she was telling me last night, and OMG is all I'll say, but that's what they need to hear to understand this isn't a theoretical. Here's bad stuff that happened in my son's life in a group home. And then she could tell them what happened to her, because she was the troublemaker when she tried to get it straightened out. Not surprising, okay? So those stories, folks, are literally unbelievably powerful. It's no longer numbers on a piece of paper. It's not an abstract concept. It's not going to be a new list of people who are bad people. But all of a sudden, oh, here's a human story. How horrible. This could help prevent that, or at least prevent it from happening again, because those perpetrators would be reported, okay? That kind of stuff. Again, if you know a story in the guardianship world where it's been abused or taken advantage of, or what your fear is, Kim, that's perfectly legitimate for them to understand, Colby to make his own case, all right? So that makes it real. And again, in some meetings, if your family member is not with you, they may or may not be, bring a photo. Put the real face in their face. Let them see it. Even when you're doing emails, most of us now know how to do an attachment of a photo. Do it that way too. You can attach fact sheets, all of that kind of stuff. All right? Then, before you totally wrap it up, thank you so much for your time, Senator, and you have 10 minutes to do this whole thing, by the way. That's why you need practice, okay? Is there anything else we can do for you? Would you like to meet other people? Would you like to come see an agency? I mean, whatever it might be. What else do you need? And then the close is, can we count on you for whatever you're asking them to do? In this case, support these two things. Sometimes it could be we've made a case why it needs to be amended. Did that a couple of weeks ago in Missouri. They had a lovely bill, and I think it was in violation of federal law, but they were going to allow school districts to exempt transition students with disabilities from having a career path with the community college workforce program. Giving the school district the authority to say, we're not going to let kids do that. I said, what? This was in Missouri. This is a pending bill. Yeah, so our whole session for that couple of tables was, what are you going to tell them of why that shouldn't be? And again, get them to better understand the employment capacity of people with disabilities. Because there are people who probably thought, well, they can't work anyhow, so we'll just make it easy for the school district and we won't waste our money for them to go on a career path. Okay? Again, I don't know that it was evil, but when I read it, because again, just like here, send me the bills in advance so I know what I'm talking about, that thing just popped out at me like, I think that's an IDEA violation, an ADA violation, and a 504 violation. Other than that, it's good law. And I'm not an attorney, but I know the policy stuff. And that bill, I think, had a hearing the other day, and my understanding is the amendment probably is going to pass to take that out. That wouldn't have happened without partners and people really drilling down and willing to tell their stories to a bunch of legislators in Missouri. So I share that with you. So that's your agenda. There's 4 of you. You can decide who's sort of going to be the facilitator and then who's going to do the, what are we here for? Walk around the introductions, then more detail about what the bill is, thanking them. Then again, specifically, why is the bill important? What's it going to do? And then the personal story, and then the thank you, and what else can we do for you? Can we count on you to vote yes when this bill comes, whether it's to the committee or to the floor? Okay? So that's your work for the next hour. Plus is at each table in your groups of 4 that you picked last night, 2 on 105, 2 on Colby's Act, sit and talk a little bit, make sure you're clear what the bill does, look at the resource materials if any of them are useful to you, and then begin to figure out which one of you is going to take which part of this so that all 4 of you have a role. Nobody sits in a meeting as a token. Unacceptable, don't go. You're taking up space. So it doesn't matter who it is, whether there's 3 people, 4 people, don't ever do more than 5. Because when you do 5 or more, all of a sudden, guess who's in charge of the meeting? The legislator. They're going to start giving you a lecture. Here's another thing, and sometimes they mean well, particularly if a bill's in a committee, because I've seen it all. They're going to say, well, let me explain to you how our committee works. I expect you to be polite, but assertive. Thank you, that's really helpful, Senator, but we know we've only got 10 minutes with you. We'd like to finish what we'd like to present, and if there's time after, we'd be happy to hear more about it, okay? So be respectful, but also don't get caught in that, because then all of a sudden they're gonna say, oh, I'm sorry, but I have to leave now because I have another meeting, okay? And it's not intentional, but nonetheless, that's not why you're there. You're there to talk to them and with them and answer questions, not get an orientation to how the committee works. Okay? And sometimes it's a dodge because they don't want to get into an uncomfortable zone, so they're going to take a detour. Assertive without aggressive, redirect. Okay? All right, any questions?
Yeah, I do. From what you just said about the transition thing, when you said that, my first thought was they need it more than anybody else. So where would you bring that into?
Oh, well,
I mean, you wouldn't say that to them right directly. So where would you get to it?
well, I mean, the folks who were preparing to do meetings on that were very clear with a couple of examples of students they knew who did take the career path and go to the community college, and then they had some of the data about why work is important, and if we get it right, that these people can work and reduce taxes. And Missouri, kind of like Alabama, is kind of a conservative state, so I helped them pitch it in terms of cost effectiveness. And my understanding is, I mean, in the trial meetings, they did real well like this, but my understanding from the staff person is a number of them went to a legislative advocacy day this last week, had meetings, and were just really beaming with what they were able to get done while they were in the Capitol. So it's not done yet, but I think they did a good job of making it real, as opposed to, again, reinforcing old concepts. Well, people like that can't work, so that's why not let the schools save money and not waste it. James, where's the handheld mic, folks? Oh, Linda had it. Daryl's got it. Whoops.
I just wanted to say, since we're getting ready to start digging into the work, I was wondering if it might be worth saying like a couple of words about each of the 2 elected officials who will be here today.
Fine.
Representative Adeline Clark is from here in Mobile, and Carolyn, Eric, if there are others from Mobile who know her, please jump in. But she represents a district in downtown Mobile. She represents the district where we are sitting right now.
Oh.
This is distinctive for the state of Alabama, and people will appreciate this. Her district votes roughly 2-to-1, Democrat to Republican.
Oh, my.
Democrats in Alabama are in the minority now.
Yes.
So a 2-to-1 district Democrat will tell you something. She's a graduate of Spring Hill, wrote for the local paper, really involved in the local community. Do either of you have more to add about Adeline? I'm just trying to give a little bit of a
No,
thumbnail.
that's great.
Yeah, Betty. Yeah, but I really don't, like that.
Okay, so I just wanted,
I will say that district is,
Say again?
hate to bring race into it, but, this area is considered black and the other areas are white.
Okay, helpful to know.
there is an element of race in Alabama politics. That's fair.
And in many states.
Yes, sir. So as I said, a thumbnail. Alan asked me to play a state senator, and I thought about it for a minute, and I'm going to channel Senator Arthur Orr. He's from Decatur, Alabama. He's a lawyer for Cook's Pest Control, if people are familiar with that. He's a person of very strong faith. When he graduated from college, he went to Asia as a member of the Peace Corps.
Oh, okay.
He is very powerfully placed and runs the budgets in the legislature.
Uh-huh.
So he's always thinking money. So you have a North Alabama Republican and a Mobile Democrat. I think you'll get a little bit of a different flavor. And Arthur is a card-carrying member of his party. He is conservative in many ways, but he's also a bright guy who's open to having the case made to him. So I wanted to give a little bit of a thumbnail so that people can kind of think
Great.
about
No, I didn't
who you're
know who
dealing
you were
with.
going to play, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Any family connections to people with disabilities? Do you know anyone?
The question is, any family connection to people with disabilities? No, not specifically that I know of.
Okay. And again, that's very helpful information. A lot of that information, beside maybe some of the inside baseball, you can find on the website. You can look up their name, find their bios, a lot of information, where they went to school, where they went to college, what their profession is. It just helps you get a sense of where are they coming from, because again, everybody in your legislature also has another job. It's a part-time job. Technically, they're in session 3-4 months a year. The rest of the time, and even part-time when they're in the legislature, they're doing their lawyer or their pest control or whatever it is, their sales work, their company. So this is a part-time job, but we expect them to be representing us 365 days a year, and that's why you can meet with them when they're not in session as well. Okay, and again, the way we're going to do this, because we only have 2 people, if we do this next year and I get to come back, we'll do this in Montgomery, and we'll be sure we get 4 or 5 legislators so we can go around a couple of times. So what we'll do here is the 2 legislators will meet, one with each of the different topics. The other 2 tables will just sort of sit back and observe, watch, listen. They'll do what I ask them to do for feedback. Then they'll rotate and they'll come to the opposite issue. So if one of them hears 105, they will then hear the other table that's doing Colby. One who's heard Colby will hear the other table doing 105. Then they'll give feedback there, and I'll give them, and here's what I'm going to tell them, just so you know. I have clear instructions for them and their behavior. Nicely. This is training. Alan's definition of training, we sort of alluded to it yesterday, is learning and practicing new skills in a safe environment. Therefore, their job is to be themselves in the meeting. If they take notes, they may take notes. If they ask questions and they're appropriate, I want them to ask the question, and I'll tell them not to do lecturing. And at the end of 10 or 11 minutes, I'm going to call time. And then their instruction is the following, and they love it. I make them teachers and coaches. Tell the table, what did they do well? Okay? Positive reinforcement. What could they do better the next time they do this? That's what I'm going to ask them to tell you, not to tell you, you messed up and don't ever do that again. That's not helpful in a learning training situation. This is training, and most of them love it. Again, I've been doing this a long, long time. They get to coach you how to do a better job. They don't get often the chance to do that because they want their time spent well when you come to the office. So for the most part, that turns out to be very instructive, and the nice part is they're going to hear 2 different bills that they might not know anything about in an hour and a half this morning, and meet some people who have some passion about it, and then I'll have them come up here and make comments, and you can ask questions or whatever. That's how the rest of this morning is going to go. So I would say go to your tables now. I'll float around. You have a question, raise your hand. But I would say take 10 minutes just to get clear. What are you asking? What's the bill about? Any of the details you need to know, any of the props you want to use, then begin to chart out which one of you is going to do which part in the, I'll call it outline or the script, and then begin thinking, how are you going to use your 2 or 2.5 minutes, okay? Move to your tables and let's go to work.